Welcome back to the Shine Within podcast. Chris Wasko is a seasoned spiritual counselor, psychic medium, and energy healer dedicated to guiding individuals through their personal journeys of healing and transformation. With expertise in trauma recovery and a focus on supporting old souls and survivors of narcissistic abuse, Chris provides compassionate guidance and healing to help clients navigate life's challenges. Thank you so much, Chris, for being on my show today. I'm so excited to actually talk with you today.
Thank you, Gina. I love this. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. And now that I know that you're from California, I don't know about you, but it is cloudy and cold here in San Jose. I'm like freezing here.
I had to look. I'm like, what do we have right now? Because it's been changing so much. So it is sunny right now, but that could change in the next hour because it was cloudy this morning.
Right. Yeah. Well, anyway, so welcome. I would just love for you just to go ahead and start off by sharing your spiritual journey and how it all began.
When my spiritual journey started, I actually would say it happened on accident, because I just found so much of it so incredibly unexpected. I mean, my background is in business, and that was where my journey was for a very long time and where I thought it would forever be, to be honest with you. But I at one point, had a pivotal moment where I made the decision to cut off my parents because I had finally said enough. I had a very abusive childhood, and it was my version of normal, though, and I was trained to believe I was the problem. And for a long time, I believed that was the case. But when I noticed it starting to affect my children, and when a hard line was drawn, I finally said no more. And I decided I needed to make that change. And when I cut them off, the first thing I felt was just pure terror, because I didn't know what was going to happen. When you have an abusive environment of any kind, you have fear. What are they going to do to me? Are they going to try and get me? Are they going to try and hurt me in some way, or my children? So the first thing I did was I just sought out therapy, because I really need to come to grips with where my feelings and emotions were at, and ultimately calm my nervous system down, because that was really what I was in. I was in, the fight flight situation personally. And when I was taking those steps, initially, I was just, seeking therapy weekly, and then eventually got to monthly. And I was making little changes along the way. I was changing my diet. I healed my thyroid in this time. I just, was really, so much was changing for the better. And within about a year to a year and a half, I started seeing people in spirit. And that always sounds so dramatic, because people just, they have Hollywood to look at, and that just makes it seem like, oh, so just a spirit just walked into my room. But, it was in my mind's eye. I would be speaking to someone just like I'm speaking to you now. And in my mind's eye, I would just get this vision of someone standing behind them, and I could describe them perfectly. But I had no idea how to communicate with them, because they don't have a body anymore. They can't speak to us and communicate the way that we do. So I started taking psychic mediumship development classes, and realized that I could actually communicate with spirit. And I think it stunned me, and that's probably why I was in the beginning, I would say I was like kind of an accidental medium, because when people say, oh, I've had this my whole life, I wouldn't say that. I would say I was definitely intuitive. I've always been empathic. But the mediumship was certainly later, and it's been really a blessing, and it's just been evolving more and more in my work, where I predominantly work with the living, and work with old souls and those that have struggled with narcissistic abuse themselves.
Wow, thanks so much for sharing that with me. And it's interesting about an old soul. I always thought my oldest son is an old soul, but I may be wrong. I don't know. I wanted to go ahead and ask you, what does it mean to be an old soul? And how individuals can determine their I guess their spice level as far as like being an old soul, because sometimes my son is spicy, and then sometimes he like brings some wisdom, and I'm like, okay, he's being a teenager, and or he's just being, his wise self, and he seemed like an old soul. So I was just curious, what makes an old soul?
Well, generally speaking, I mean, an old soul is someone that has been through many, many, many lifetimes, not just on this planet, but on other planets and dimensions. And, but as far as personality, old souls are generally considered rather challenging, a bit difficult. And I always say, no child challenges a parent more than their old soul child. So if there is a child that really keeps you on your toes, that child is very likely an old soul.
I see. Okay, it makes total sense now because I was just always curious about that. And as for our listeners, I mean, a lot of them, at least they give me feedback that they've been in narcissistic relationships where their boyfriend would manipulate them. I mean, I was in one myself. Heck, I may have even been one during my alcoholic times too. What is your definition of a narcissist?
Well, I think one thing that a lot of people don't understand is that narcissism is a spectrum.
Mhm.
So we are taught the grandiose, overt kind of narcissist that is rather dramatic and rather obvious in a lot of ways. But the other side of the spectrum is the covert narcissist, where that narcissist is more manipulative, rather quiet, uh, utilizes tactics such as the silent treatment, any form of manipulation, really. So it's recognizing first that it's a spectrum. And in my own work, I never really understood it in the beginning. Why is it every time I was working with an old soul, there was a narcissist nearby? Or if I was working with someone healing from narcissism, there's an old soul nearby. So a lot of people talk about the old soul empath, or excuse me, the empath narcissist connection, actually the old soul narcissist connection, because every empath is an old soul, but not every old soul is an empath. Not everyone chooses that one because that's a tough one to have. So we don't always put that on our soul contract. But yeah, really, just when it comes to healing from narcissism, if you're in that kind of relationship, whether it is a romantic relationship, whether it is a family relationship, it's also understanding that you yourself are going to have some tactics yourself that fall on the narcissistic spectrum. Some people might refer to those as you've gotten fleas, because really you've been in that environment for so long, you are going to have some tendencies, and it's recognizing where those tendencies are and how you can heal yourself in that.
Right. Yeah. That makes total sense. Thanks so much for clarifying that for me because I was always like, yeah, the connection between the two and then exactly what is an old soul because I do hear that quite often. Old soul. Now, going back a little bit because you were saying that once you've healed yourself and then you've had the moment to recover and you had that processing and then that's when you notice your intuition was becoming more heightened. I've noticed that too. As soon as I stopped drinking, that was like my trauma that I was dealing with. I stopped drinking and then all of a sudden I saw everything more clear. Now, I must have always had that intuition inside, but probably masking it from the alcohol and I wasn't tapping into my gifts. Now, my mom, she shared with me when she was a little girl, she used to see people. Now, she doesn't anymore. I'm sure she's just not focusing. If she really wanted to get into that, I'm sure she can. But she would see, I'll show you a story. So one time she was coming home from school, she went inside her house and then she saw a man kind of like with the top hat, standing there and being kind as she is. She's just like, hello. And then she paused and then she looked back and she's like, he was gone. And some other times, some things would visit her at night, would be like a scary moment and like a more of a dark energy. And she didn't know how to process all that. And so knowing that she had those, and well, I haven't seen anybody yet, but I hear things now. I'm starting to actually. I heard a voice and I thought it was my husband at first. And I'm like, did you say something? Because it was the middle of the night and I had to go get up and use the restroom and went back to bed. And I heard something because I had asked the question about what should I get my mom and my sister for Christmas when you last year, I think it was. And then and it said something about oils, and I'm like, huh. And it's interesting because I did wind up getting them some bath oils, because I work at a spa as well. So we have a beautiful line. But then my sister, I know she's messaging me, oh, I want to get more of that oil. So I'm like, it's a great gift. I got guidance somehow. So I'm noticing a lot of ringing voices now. like my name would be called. I'm like, did you call my name? I'm like, no. Or I'm hearing my husband say something, but he didn't say anything. You're like, no, I didn't. I'm like, I swear you said something. That's why I came downstairs. I thought you were calling for me. So I felt like I was going cuckoo at first, but then I was like, no, these are gifts that I'm actually embracing. And talking about the empaths, like the energy that I feel on the freeway is so intense that I hate driving. I used to love driving. So I have to like change my frequency and play some music to help me through the time
Yeah.
because I'm sensing everybody's energy. I'm like, oh, do you experience that at all?
Oh, 100%. And I love that you brought up about your own healing journey too, because really when it comes to healing, the more somebody heals, the more they open up to spirit, whether they know it or not. And that's really what tends to happen. Now, your gifts are coming up as more clairaudient. So that's why you're hearing stuff. A budding clairaudient tends to often hear their name, hear a word, a phrase, maybe. It's usually fragmented. You don't tend to get like sentences and paragraphs. But yeah, it's really learning that we as humans can create spiritual boundaries too. So, like you said in your car and you have to change the vibration, you're creating boundaries. You're shifting that. When you said about your mom and things coming up at night, you could set boundaries for that as well. It's a lot of why I actually was rather closed down in my own mediumship in the beginning, because I did not want things visiting me at night. I don't want to be bothered. It's like, I am okay with spirit, but not after the hour of 10, please. and then we'll treat this again in the morning. But really, you could just say, closed for the evening, or however you want to do it. But we don't have to constantly be open to spirit. I mean, even when it comes to working with clients, we're supposed to, connect to the client, connect to spirit. And then when we're done, close down so that we're not this open channel 24/7, because really that's very draining and that's tiring. It would exhaust your energy.
Yeah, that makes total sense. Kind of like you're open for shop. We're closed for shop.
Exactly.
You set a
Exactly.
boundary there. Yeah, that's good. And as a spiritual counselor, how do you actually help individuals and families actually understand behaviors and soul development, considering the uniqueness of each person's journey? Because I know everybody's journey is different.
Well, the first thing I do when it comes to spiritual counseling is I read somebody's energy.
Mm.
And my primary clair is clairsentience. So I will connect my chakra system, my main chakra system, to my client's main chakra system, and I'll just get an overall read. So if I say I'm getting a little tug in my throat chakra, I understand that their voice has probably been stifled, or they've been criticized for speaking too much. So that'll be like a hit I get. And then if I feel something in the solar plexus or the sacral chakra, I know they probably have some gut issues. They probably have some gut instincts, things like that. So it's first addressing where I'm feeling things, and just understanding who they are as a person and what their energy is putting out. And then we start to work on healing any kind of traumas that come up, because for me, I tend to get clients that find me because they have had childhood trauma and they're working through that. And it is also ultimately what led me to be a spiritual teacher, because so many of my clients, as they were healing, were waking up and seeing things and hearing things. So I was like, okay, I will teach you how to communicate with spirit and how that goes, because I wasn't just going to let them hang out to figure that out on their own. I mean, I did, and I know I would have loved an easier path. So, but it's a pretty amazing experience. No session is ever the same. Everyone has their own story, and we all have our own energy. But it is really exciting, and I really love that I've been guided to do this work.
And that's beautiful. And actually, can you share like a success story of somebody who you've seen a complete transformation on?
Yes. Oh, yes. I have two that really stand out. The reason I like to separate these two, one is a child and the other is an adult, because I do I do receive a lot of children. Uh, when it comes to old souls, by the time they reach the age, it's usually 11. They tend to face really challenging issues such as depression, maybe even suicidal feelings, and not wanting to be on this planet. So when I receive it's always a parent, the children aren't coming to me. I'm usually the last resort. They've tried therapy, they've tried counseling, medication, you name it, and they don't know what else to do. So, then they find me, which really I prefer, only because I know that they have tried, and it's not just let's just see what happens. I do believe in therapy. I do believe that there are people out there that do that for a reason and are certified to do so. I am not certified in any sort of therapy in that nature, but I can hear the inner thoughts of children, and I can also help them understand themselves better and their souls. So one girl in particular was really struggling. She was about 14 when I first spoke with her, and we just, with her mom's blessing, her and I had a heart to heart, and we had a beautiful conversation. But in this conversation, I know I was able to offer her many aha moments and help her make sense of things. And now she actually just turned 17, and I hear how well she's doing, how happy she is. And I received a beautiful note from her mom just thanking me for really helping her see who she was, and that life could be different. So that to me was such a blessing for so many reasons, but it really it filled my heart. And then an adult client that I have, this client is one where any recommendation I would give, she would do to a T. I always give recommendations of things to do, but I always say it's your healing journey. It is for you to figure out what you want to do, what resonates with you. But after each spiritual counseling session, everyone gets a write-up, and well, here's what I recommend you work on. Here is what your energy is telling me, and how you could help shift things for yourself. And also look at what their goals are too. So it's really shifting things in relation to directing them toward their goals. So this client, like I said, everything to a T, and her life was just changing in so many ways. She would just tell me how she would have these wonderful interactions with people. She would tell me how things are going at work. She would tell me just overall how she was feeling about herself, and just these little things, because really that's what healing is. Are these little steps, these baby steps toward the better versions of ourselves as we shed the old belief systems. And she just, as she puts it in her words, is she never saw that her life would be this way, and never realized it could be this good. And when I receive emails like that of how life-changing things are, it's just really about stepping into this new version of yourself, but the version of yourself that you want to be, which really relates to just the emotions you want to feel on a regular basis.
Oh, yes. Oh, those are the best clients, the ones that actually do take on the recommendations and then put it to practice and then just see success. Little things too, just little shifts, and not like massive things like you got to do this, you got to change this. No, just try it out, see how it works for you. If it does, then continue it, you know?
Exactly. Energy is subtle, and I never recommend any change that's going to be too dramatic, because it kind of goes along the lines of people who decide, oh, I'm going to go on a diet and I'm going to lose all of this weight. If they make a drastic change, it is not likely to stick, only because it doesn't match where their energy is at. You have, in order to really get to where you want to be, you have to make those minor energetic changes over time. The massive ones puts a shock to the system, and your energy actually deflects it. And that is why so many people tend to fail in these long-term goals unless they do these baby steps, because the energy has to match it.
Absolutely. Like intuitive eating, listen to your body. What is it craving? Because sometimes diets itself, it's like, I have to eat this way. I have to cut out this. I have to. It doesn't have to be that way. Just maybe a little less. Maybe if you're not hungry at night, like, oh heck, I'll give you an example. Like I'm not really hungry in the morning time. I'm not going to eat. If I'm not hungry, I'm not going to eat. I'll drink some tea, or something, but I'll listen to my body as saying, hey, no, Gina, I want you to eat at 11 o'clock instead, or somewhere around that time. And that's when I'll typically have my meal. And I'm satisfied. So, we are all programmed to say, okay, this is what you're supposed to have for breakfast. This is the time you're supposed to have for lunch. This is the time you're supposed to eat dinner. We're not supposed to be on a program set. We're supposed to actually just listen to our spirit. What does our spirit want?
Yeah,
Little shifts
exactly,
like that, little
exactly.
shifts. Now, what advice would you actually give to someone who is like myself, who's just beginning to explore their spiritual path or intuition?
Well, I believe that we are all guided in some way, shape, or form. So listen to those little voices, those little gut feelings. There's going to be something there. You're going to find the people you're meant to find. For me, I started with reading. I read every single thing I possibly could that spoke to me. And I would meet people on my journey, and some of those people are still on my journey with me, and others have moved on, and it just progresses as it's meant to. But it's really just trusting those little moments, because you can miss it, and if it's really important, it's going to come up again. And then at that point, if you choose to still ignore it, our guides can not get in the way of free will. So it is a choice. There are plenty of people that decide, I don't want to walk this journey. It freaks me out and I'm not going to do it. I absolutely say, trust yourself, trust the journey, and just that inner voice is guiding you for a reason. And it's probably leading you somewhere that you're going to feel really good about one day.
Totally. Now you do multiple things. You're not just a medium. You actually work with numbers. You also you do like home space, like feng shui. Can you talk a little bit about what you
Mhm.
offer?
Yeah, it's really interesting because, it's kind of like they say in Old Soul, a jack of all trades, master of none. But I feel like with Old Souls, we're not just a jack of all trades, we're master of many, because a lot of us have been doing this in many other lifetimes. So there's things that just come really naturally. I was doing astrology as a child. I would not call myself an astrologist, but it was always something I was drawn to. The reason I got into feng shui is because I could walk into someone's home and I could feel if there was energy. I could feel if there was blocking. I do that even with clients. If I meet them online, I'll be like, show me the house. And if I'm like, oh, wait, I just got something right there, we have to clear this. Or, oh, that picture is not working for this area, we need to move that. So a lot of it's because I'm so sensitive to energy and I can feel it. And then when it shifts, it's like, think of when you declutter, right? And you just feel better. It's because the energy has shifted, you've changed it, you've created it. So, yeah, a lot of the things I do is just where I've been guided to myself along the way, and just to, help people feel their own energy too. I really like to give people power. Granted, if people want to continue having sessions with me, I am all for it, and I love that. But ultimately, I want to help people help themselves and become masters of their own energy and understand how to read it and to feel it, and really just be out in the world with that is really a great thing for them.
Absolutely. Now, you also do something like theta healing. Can you explain a little bit about that and how it actually helps individuals clear limiting beliefs to aim, like, with the mind, body, and spirit connection?
Yeah, I got into theta healing because I was very fascinated by what it was, because theta is all about changing your brain waves. So if you are communicating with spirit in general, you're already changing your brain waves. Like you and I were communicating right now, we're in beta brain waves. But as soon as we start connecting to spirit, or just go within to meditate, then we're shifting to an alpha brain wave. So because I was already doing psychic mediumship, I was already shifting my brain waves in order to communicate with spirit. So I thought, okay, what does it mean to shift to theta? And I found that it wasn't that much different, but at the same time, it is when it comes to things you can do to really heal yourself. Because when it comes to theta, it's about getting to a bottom belief what is it that it is making you behave the way you're behaving? Why is it you are carrying an illness you're having? Why is it that you are recycled in a pattern in your life? There is a bottom belief that might be keeping you stuck. And theta helps really climb into that and then release it on a conscious level where you are bringing your consciousness to be cleared. And I just found it so fascinating. And that's why I trained to become a theta healer and felt that, okay, even if it doesn't help others, it's something that certainly I think can benefit just to know. And I really am grateful just to know that and to have had that experience.
Absolutely. Yeah. I did what was called biofeedback when I was younger. So I had a lot of childhood trauma, like sexual childhood trauma when I was growing up from the ages of 6 to 12 years old. And I kept everything bottled up inside me until I turned like 22 or 23 years old. So I had a lot of stomach issue. A lot of that tension was going there. They thought perhaps it was IBS. I don't have IBS. Uh, um, it was just all of the trauma that I had experienced, and my mom didn't know what to do. She was taking me to all these doctors and all this, and finally she decided to take me to kind of like a hypnotherapist, where we did biofeedback, where I was actually learning how to relax my body, from the top of my head to the my feet, and learning how to be in a different state of mind, more relaxed. And because I would be so nervous, I would wind up throwing up. Like that's how nervous I was as a child growing up, and it was horrible. So I had to do a lot of healing. So I learned how to changed my thinking, especially after, like I mentioned, when I got sober. I did get a mentor who helped me change my whole mindset when it comes to everything, like limiting beliefs, changing my story, reframing everything. And I've learned that once I changed my mindset, like I was more even open to spirit. It felt like it's amazing. It's incredible
Yeah.
experience, and I love it. And I'm learning more and more. Like I see, I feel, I sense. I haven't seen it. I haven't communicated with the dead yet. I always say yet because there is a possibility, of course. Life, everything is limitless. So you can do anything, really. You can. And it's just an amazing journey. And so I get so excited talking to women like yourself, because I'm like, wow, you mentioned you were in business and then totally shifted, and it was by accident, but it was obviously meant to be. There are no accidents, right? um, and so I feel like
Correct.
exactly the same way. And I get so inspired. And I'm really hoping that the listeners really start with little things like you mentioned, listening to your gut feeling. If you have like maybe if you're even getting those cold chills and something's aligning with you properly, like pay attention, pay attention to what's going on that time. And I was also mentioning to you about my husband and how he is skeptical. He's coming around, to be honest with you. I'm like, all right, Victor. And I don't know, maybe I'm there to also help him spiritually. I don't know. I spoke to a psychic medium, and she's also an animal communication. She does everything also. And she was saying, you're meant to be a spiritual guide. I said, I am. I said, to who? Maybe it's my husband I'm supposed to. Who knows? But it's really fun to really tap into your gifts and learn your potential, because you have so much.
Yeah, and I think it's also common for us to have someone, as you've described your husband. I'm a full believer in a healthy dose of skepticism. I think, I'm a natural skeptic. So, I understand that my husband also is entirely skeptical. So, when I started on this and that things were happening, I would tell him and he'd be like, okay, and I knew I wasn't lying, but at the same time, he didn't know how to take that. And, it's comical, but over time, as he's seen people respond to me, it's really like, oh, wow, which is great. But I think also, it helps, it keeps us grounded as well. When it comes to just communicating with spirit generally, one thing we really need to remember is that we remain humble, because it gets in the way, spirit will humble us. When I remember when I was starting and I was doing really well in my reads, and this was just in practice. And I was like, yes, I did great. I was amazing. I would
Oh, may have lost you. I may have lost you there. It's just too much frequency between you and I.
there we go.
I was sharing it's too much frequency between you and I. Or the technology
Yeah,
cannot
and I was
handle
saying
us.
Mercury's in retrograde, so we're asking
Oh, I know, right? That's
for
right. We can, what I can do is I can totally turn off the video, and that would probably make it a lot smoother with the connection.
that was so weird. I didn't get a warning or anything. It was just like,
It happens.
yeah,
I said it always happens to the best of us too. Like I always have
yeah,
like some
yeah,
glitches that happen all of a
yeah.
sudden. It's like, oh, well, I
Like,
just
okay,
I just
okay,
have too much energy for this
yeah,
technology.
yeah, yep, exactly.
Oh, that's great. But as you were saying about your husband is was a skeptic, and it's good to have skepticism, and then and then we're going along that line there.
Yeah, basically, it's just that when we have humility, I think when you have somebody very close in your life that's a skeptic, it can help keep you humble and grounded. Because when we're not, and our ego takes us away a bit, it's a reminder that a lot of why we're doing what we're doing is because we're meant to help, not just ourselves but other people. And the more we expansive we become in that genuine feeling of love and help and guidance is when we recognize we're on the path for a reason, and it's really beautiful. But we're also human, and we're going to have life stuff come in, and that's where the people that are closest to us, and they're going to have an effect. So it's good that it comes from a loving place.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I mean, you've inspired our listeners, I'm sure, and I'm sure they want to go ahead and connect with you. How can they find you on the beautiful World Wide Web?
I have my website. It's chriswasko.com, and I can also be found on Instagram and Facebook at Chris Wasko Medium.
Wonderful. And I will have everything in the show notes for our listeners. But lastly, how do you actually envision the future of your work and the impact you hope to make in the lives of those you assist spiritually?
I think I'm meant to help old souls, and I will continue to do so. And I feel that the impact will be to help them understand that they are amazing, because so many of them are made to feel like they're a problem, made to feel like they're difficult and challenging. And they're also meant to have very challenging childhoods. And I want them to know that it is happening for a reason. But I know that's a tough pill to swallow when you're going through it, but that it is worth it when you do get through it. It's just going to take time. Old souls do not sign up for easy lessons. We've done easy. So the reason we're taking on hard, it's, think of it like people who take on AP courses. It's because, oh, yep, I want the challenge and it's going to benefit me. That is exactly how that works for the soul. It's, I want this challenge from my soul.
Yeah, that's right. Yes, I've heard I've been in many have had many lifetimes too. I was a shaman in my past life. I was actually a teenager who was murdered in my past life, and everything
Mhm.
makes sense. I'm like, oh, well, this totally makes sense because I do massage therapy. I had a traumatic experience in my teenage years with a boyfriend. We're the same age, but it was
Mhm.
traumatic, and I'm like, everything is connected. And so, wow, that's so amazing. Any last words or thoughts at all, Chris?
I just thank you so much for having me. And, to anyone listening, just know that you matter, and you're connecting, and you're probably awakening more and more each day. And awakenings happen in layers. So just because you have one awakening doesn't mean there's not more to come, because there usually is.
Absolutely. I feel like I'm learning something new every day and unveiling things every day. And I'm just like, wow. It's the more that I know, the more I know that I don't know. I'm like, wow, it's crazy.
It's true. It's true. Yeah, it's a journey. It's a healing journey. It's a learning journey. It's a growing journey. It's a journey. And it doesn't quite have a destination, really. It's really just being open to the evolutionary process, because, even when we're done in this lifetime, the soul is still going to go on and is still going to continue to learn and evolve.
Absolutely. Ah, I love that. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for being on my show today. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.